The trunk lid was slightly ajar, and nestled among the shopping bags, I spotted my daughter Sarah's forgotten purse, a flash of brown leather that caught my eye like a beacon. In that instant, an icy chill coursed down my spine, a premonition so violent it made me shudder. "Stop the car right now." I shouted at my sister, Linda, who was driving calmly along the country road, taking us back home. Linda glanced at me with alarm, her hands tightening their grip on the steering wheel. "What's wrong, Bernice? Are you feeling sick?" "Stop the car," I repeated, my voice sounding more hysterical than I intended. At 72 years old, I had learned to trust my instincts, and right then, every fiber of my being was screaming that something was terribly wrong. My sister thought I was overreacting. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she sighed before beginning to slow down. But she still decided to pull over onto the shoulder, that strip of dirt and gravel alongside the asphalt. That decision saved our lives. Inside that purse was something that would change everything I thought I knew about my own family. We had spent 3 days in the city, Linda and I, 2 older sisters taking a trip to handle banking matters, visit doctors, and enjoy those little urban luxuries we didn't have back home. The return journey was always more relaxed than the drive there. Linda drove with that calm that comes from years of experience, humming old songs as the afternoon sun painted the landscape in golden tones. We had been on the road for about an hour when I decided to stretch. I shifted in my seat, turned my neck to relieve the tension. And that's when my eyes landed on the space between the back seats and the trunk. The purse. That object that shouldn't have been there lay forgotten among our belongings like a time bomb waiting to explode. My heart began racing. Sarah, my only daughter, had visited us the day before at the hotel. She had insisted on helping us organize the purchases in the trunk. I remembered her smile, her kisses on my cheeks, her affectionate words. "Mom, drive carefully. You know this highway can be dangerous at night." Why did that sentence suddenly send chills down my spine? "Linda," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "there's a purse back there. I think it's Sarah's." My sister glanced quickly in the rearview mirror. "Oh, yeah. She must have forgotten it yesterday. We'll give it to her when we get home." "No, I need to see it now." Linda frowned, but something in my tone made her understand this wasn't just a whim. She started looking for a safe place to stop, but I couldn't wait. I unbuckled my seatbelt and turned around, stretching my arm toward the purse. My fingers barely grazed brown leather. I stretched further, feeling the pull in my back. At 72, my body wasn't as flexible, but adrenaline gave me extra strength. "Bernice, for God's sake, you're going to hurt yourself." Linda sped up a little, desperately looking for a place to pull over. Finally, my fingers managed to grab one of the purse straps. I pulled it toward me with a sharp tug. The purse tumbled into my lap, just as Linda found that safe spot on the shoulder and hit the brake. The car stopped with a jolt. Linda turned to me, her expression a mixture of worry and frustration. "Are you going to explain what's going on?" I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the purse, now resting in my lap. It was definitely Sarah's, brown with gold details, her initials engraved. Essiem, Sarah Espinosa Morales. I had given it to her myself 2 years ago. But there was something strange. The purse was heavier than usual, too heavy to just hold her typical belongings. With trembling hands, I opened the main zipper. Inside were the usual things, a small mirror, lipstick, tissues. But underneath it all, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a cell phone. It wasn't the latest model iPhone that Sarah always carried. This one was different. A basic, cheap phone, the kind you could buy without needing to provide personal information. A burner phone. The air seemed to leave my lungs. Linda leaned in to get a better look, her expression shifting from curiosity to confusion. "What is that? Why would Sarah have 2 phones?" That was exactly the question that made my blood run cold. I took the device in my hands. It was warm, as if it had been on recently. The moment I held it, it vibrated. A notification, then another and another. Someone was sending messages. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, showing WhatsApp notifications. The phone had no password, no protection at all. "Bernice." Linda's voice sounded tense. Maybe we shouldn't. But I had already opened the messaging app. The last chat was with a contact saved simply as M. The messages were recent, very recent. They just passed the checkpoint. M, 15 minutes ago. They must be close. Don't write anymore. Sarah, 12 minutes ago. Confirmed. Everything will go as planned. M, 10 minutes ago. My breathing became erratic. I scrolled up to the conversation, reading earlier messages. Each one was worse than the last. The mechanic confirmed the job on the brakes. They will fail at the curve on mile marker 48. M, from yesterday. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. Mile marker 48. The most dangerous curve on the entire highway, with a cliff on one side and huge rocks on the other. Are you sure about this? It's your mother, Sarah. M, from 3 days ago. My daughter's reply came minutes later. We don't have another choice. The debts are $350,000. If we don't pay, Michael and I will be dead. The inheritance solves everything. Mom has properties worth over $2 million. No one will suspect an accident on that highway. The phone fell from my hands. Linda quickly picked it up and started reading, her face twisting into a mask of horror. Dear God, she whispered. Bernice, this can't be real. But I knew it was real. In that terrible moment, all the pieces fit together. Sarah's frequent visits in recent weeks, her insistence that I give her power of attorney, her questions about my will, about my bank accounts, her nervousness when I told her I preferred to wait before signing any documents. Keep reading, I told Linda in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. My sister swiped her finger across the screen. There were more messages, conversations going back 2 months. There were photos, pictures of documents Sarah had secretly taken, my will, bank statements, property deeds. Bernice, we have to call the police. Linda was already reaching for her phone. This is attempted murder. No, not yet. What do you mean, no? Your daughter is trying to kill you. She was right, but something inside me resisted. I needed to think. I needed to understand before I acted. I looked ahead. According to the odometer, we were at mile marker 35. The deadly curve was just 13 miles away. The silence inside the car was deafening. Linda was staring at me, waiting for an explanation, waiting for me to say something that made sense. But how could I explain that my own daughter had planned my death with the coldness of someone planning a vacation? I need to think. I murmured, holding the burner phone in my hands as if it were a venomous snake. I need to understand everything before I make a move. Think. Linda's voice went up an octave. Bernice, there's nothing to think about. Sarah and that bastard Michael planned to kill us. They tampered with the car's brakes. At any moment, we could... I know. I cut her off, my voice sounding strangely calm. But if we call the police now, they'll find out. And if they find out, they'll find a way to escape or destroy the evidence. We need to be smarter than them. My sister looked at me as if I had gone crazy. Maybe she was right. Maybe the shock of discovering my own daughter's betrayal had broken something in my brain. But as I held that phone, as I reread those cold, calculating messages, something inside me was transforming. The pain was there. Of course, it was a deep, searing pain that tore my chest. But on top of that pain, something else was beginning to grow. Something cold, something sharp. Rage. Not the explosive rage that makes you scream and break things. No, this was different. It was a rage of ice, clear and precise as a scalpel. Sarah had planned my death. My only daughter, the child I carried in my womb, whom I had breastfed, whom I had raised alone after a father abandoned us. That same person had decided that I was worth more dead than alive. $350,000 in debt. $2 million in properties. The math was simple for her, apparently. Bernice, please. Linda had tears in her eyes. We can't stay in this car. If the brakes... You're right. I made a quick decision. We're going to test the brakes right now, while we're still in a safe place. Linda nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. She put the car in drive slowly, moving just a few feet on the empty shoulder. Then she hit the brake. The car stopped normally. She tried again, this time harder. The vehicle responded well, stopping short. They seem to be working, Linda said, but her voice didn't sound relieved. Maybe the plan was for them to fail gradually, like the message said. Maybe we haven't reached the point where... Mile marker 48. I finished. They designed this, so the brakes would fail exactly at the most dangerous curve. We're 13 miles away. The mechanism is probably set to deteriorate progressively. The precision of the plan was terrifying. They didn't want the car to fail just anywhere. They wanted to make sure that when the brakes stopped working, we would be in exactly the worst possible place. A place where an accident would be fatal. A place where no one would question that two elderly women simply lost control of the vehicle. I looked at the phone again. There was a message I hadn't read completely before. The mechanic says it's undetectable. He used a special fluid that corrodes the system gradually. By the time they reach the critical point, there will be no way to stop the car. And after the impact, the fire will take care of eliminating any evidence. Michael from a week ago. The fire. Of course they had thought of everything. Listen to me, Linda. I turned to my sister, taking her hands. They were ice cold, shaking. We are going to pretend we found nothing. We are going to act as if everything is normal. Normal? Linda looked at me incredulously. How are we going to? We are going to call Sarah. We're going to tell her. We found her purse. We're going to watch her reaction. Bernice! That's dangerous. If she suspects we saw. She won't suspect. My voice was firm, decisive. Because we are going to be very careful. We are going to act exactly like two elderly women who found a forgotten purse and want to return it to its owner. Linda studied me for a long moment. I watched her process my words, watched her expression shift from fear to something resembling understanding. My sister was 5 years younger than me, but she was no fool. She knew what I was proposing. You want to set a trap for them, she finally said. I want justice, I corrected, and I want to make sure that when they fall so hard they can never get up again. I took my own cell phone from my bag. Sarah was in my favorite contacts with a smiling photo from 2 years ago. That photo now looked like the mask of a stranger. I pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Mom. Sarah's voice sounded normal, even affectionate. Did you get home already? Is everything okay on the road? Every word was a stab in the back, because I knew that behind that sweet voice, my daughter was waiting for the news of my death. Hi, sweetheart. I forced my voice to sound calm, motherly. We're not home yet. Actually, we stopped because we found your purse in the trunk. You forgot it yesterday when you helped us with the shopping. There was a silence, brief but long enough, a silence that screamed panic. My purse. Sarah's voice had changed subtly. It didn't sound so relaxed anymore. Oh, right. I didn't even notice. It's not important, Mom. You can bring it to me when you get here. Well, the thing is it has your phone in it, I said, observing every word, measuring the impact. Your iPhone. I thought you might need it. Another pause, this time longer. My iPhone? No, Mom, I have my iPhone right here with me. Maybe it's an old phone I left in there a long time ago. She was lying. I could hear it in her voice, the barely contained nervousness. Linda noticed it too, her hand squeezing my arm. Oh, maybe so, I replied with a casual tone. Anyway, you'll stop by tomorrow to pick it up, right? Yes, I'll stop by tomorrow. Sarah was rushing to end the conversation. Mom, be careful on the road. That highway is dangerous, especially the big curve. Drive slowly, okay? The big curve. The one at mile marker 48. My own daughter was warning me about the exact spot where she had planned my death. The irony was so dark it almost made me laugh. We will... Sweetheart, I love you. I love you too, Mom. I hung up. The last words hung in the air of the car like invisible poison. I love you, I repeated in a low voice. How can she say that when she's waiting for me to die? Linda didn't answer. There was no answer to that question. Immediately after I hung up, the burner phone in my hand started vibrating. WhatsApp messages coming in, one after another. It was Sarah writing to M, who was obviously Michael, her husband. Crap, they found the purse. Sarah, 30 seconds ago. What? How? Michael, 20 seconds ago. I forgot in the car. She just called me. Said she found a phone inside. Sarah, 15 seconds ago. Did she check the phone? Michael, 10 seconds ago. I don't know. She sounded normal, but if she saw the messages, Michael, we're finished. Sarah, 5 seconds ago. Calm down. If she had seen anything, she wouldn't have called acting normal. She probably just saw the phone and thought it was yours. Old women like her don't even know how to use those devices. Michael, right now, old women like her. Linda read that message over my shoulder and choked back an indignant cry. I remained silent, but something inside me hardened even more. Michael, the man who had entered my family 10 years ago, the man I had welcomed like a son, was calling me an old woman while planning my murder. What we do now? Sarah, we stick to the plan. If she suspected anything, she would have turned around or called the police. The fact that they're still on their way means she knows nothing. In less than an hour, it will all be over. Michael, in less than an hour, it will all be over. I looked at the car's clock. It was 4:37 p.m. According to their calculations, by 5:30 I would be dead. Linda, too. 2 victims of a tragic car accident on a rural highway known for being dangerous. We are not going to reach that curve, I said suddenly. We are going to do something different. What do you mean? Linda looked at me with a mixture of fear and curiosity. We're going to pretend something is wrong with the car. We're going to call a tow truck and have it towed. But we're not going home. We're going straight to a mechanic's shop. Understanding lit up Linda's face. To document what they did to the car. Exactly. We need physical evidence. The messages are important, but a professional mechanic's report is irrefutable. Linda nodded slowly, drying her last tears. I could see she was transforming too. The initial shock was giving way to something stronger. We were in this together, 2 sisters against the world, or more specifically, against my own daughter. Linda started the engine again, but this time we didn't move forward. Instead, she turned the wheel and began to make a U-turn, driving away from the direction we were headed, away from mile marker 48, away from the death my daughter had planned in such detail. There's a garage in the town we passed about half an hour ago, Linda said, her voice now firm and determined. The owner is Ben. Do you remember him? He was in school with your late husband. He's trustworthy. I nodded vaguely, remembering a large man in his 60s who had always been kind to me the few times we'd met. Trustworthy. That word now had a completely different meaning to me. I had trusted Sarah my entire life, and look where that trust had gotten me. The burner phone vibrated again. More messages between Sarah and Michael. What if we check the car ourselves, to make sure everything is still in place? Sarah, we can't risk being seen near her house or on the highway. We already did our part by visiting her yesterday. Any strange move now would raise suspicions if something goes wrong. Michael, you're right. God, I'm so nervous. I can't stop thinking about. Sarah, don't think. Just wait. In an hour, the police will call reporting the accident. We'll act surprised, devastated. We'll go to the scene. We'll cry. We'll do everything expected of a grieving family. Michael, what if they survive? Sarah, the question chilled my blood. There was no hope in those words. She wasn't asking with relief. She was asking out of fear that her plan would fail. They won't survive. The mechanic was very clear. At the speed the car will be going and with the weight of the vehicle, the drop will be at least 150 feet. Nobody survives that. And if by some miracle they do, the fire will take care of the rest. Michael, I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Linda noticed my paleness and reached out a hand to touch my arm. Don't read anymore. Bernice, we've seen enough. But I needed to see. I needed to understand just how far the betrayal went. I kept scrolling to the messages, finding conversations from previous days. There was a message from a week ago that caught my attention. I spoke with the lawyer. Once we have the death certificate, we can start the inheritance process. Since I'm the only child and have power of attorney for some accounts, access to the funds will be almost immediate. At least $500,000. Sarah, perfect. With that, we pay off the loan sharks and have enough left over to disappear for a while. When we come back, we'll inherit the rest and nobody will suspect a thing. Michael, do you think it will work? Sarah, it worked before. Michael, I froze, staring at that last line. It worked before. What did that mean? Had they done this before? Had Michael killed someone else? Linda, reading over my shoulder, let out a small gasp. Bernice, that man is a murderer. I kept searching, my fingers trembling as I swiped the screen. I found a conversation that explained everything. It was from 3 months ago. My mother died exactly the way I'm planning for yours to die. Car accident. No one suspected a thing. I inherited everything. That's how I got the money for our wedding. Michael, you killed your own mother. Sarah, I did what was necessary. She was old, sick. She was going to die in a few years anyway. I just sped up the inevitable and secured our future. Now we'll do the same with Bernice. Think about it. Sarah, your mother is 72. How many more years do you think she'll live? 5? 10? Is it worth waiting and risking losing everything because of our debts? Michael, I don't know Michael. She's my mother. Sarah, she's an obstacle, nothing more. Love doesn't pay off $350,000 in debt. Love doesn't stop the loan sharks from breaking our legs. Or worse, your mother is our only way out. Michael, okay, we'll do it. Sarah, okay, we'll do it. 2 words that sealed my death sentence. My daughter had chosen between her mother and money. She had chosen money. Between my life and her comfortable one, she had chosen hers. The car stopped abruptly, and I realized we had arrived at the mechanic's shop. It was a modest building with a large open bay door where several vehicles could be seen in different states of repair. A hand-painted sign read, Ben's Garage, trusted repairs since 1985. A man in grease-stained overalls came out when he heard the engine. It was Ben, with more gray hair than I remembered, but with the same kind expression on his face. Linda? Bernice? His smile faded when he saw our faces. What happened? Are you okay? Linda got out of the car first, walking up to him. I got out more slowly, still holding the burner phone in my hand. My mind was racing, calculating what to say, how to explain without revealing too much yet. Ben, we need your help, I said, my voice sounding calmer than I felt. We need you to check the brakes on this car right now. And we need you to document everything you find. The mechanic frowned, looking at the vehicle. Are you having problems with the brakes? Did you feel something strange while driving? Not exactly, Linda intervened. But we have reason to believe that someone may have tampered with the braking system. Ben looked at us with an expression mixing surprise and concern. It wasn't a common request. People didn't just show up at a garage asking them to document sabotage. That's very serious, he said slowly. If someone altered a vehicle's brakes, we're talking about attempted homicide. You should call the police. We will, I assured him. But first, we need solid evidence. Can you help us? Ben studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Of course. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to put the car on the lift and check it completely. If there's anything out of place, I'll find it. While he got ready, Linda and I sat in a small waiting room with plastic chairs and old magazines. The smell of motor oil and gasoline filled the air. Normally, it would have bothered me, but now I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere, processing everything I had discovered. Sarah had just planned my death. She had married a man who had killed his own mother. How had I not noticed? How had I been so blind? I remembered the wedding 10 years ago. Sarah, radiant in her white dress. Michael, handsome and charming, telling me how his mother had tragically passed away in a car accident just before they met. He had cried telling me that story. Fake tears, I now knew. Crocodile tears while he was probably celebrating his perfect crime internally. And I had believed him. I had opened my home, my family, my heart to him. The burner phone vibrated again. This time it was an incoming call. The name on the screen said M. Michael was calling. I looked at Linda, who shook her head violently. We shouldn't answer. But a part of me wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to confirm that the monster from the messages was real. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Seconds later, an audio message arrived. With trembling hands, I pressed play. "Sarah, damn it," answered the phone. Michael's voice was tense, anxious. "I need to know if your mother checked that phone. If she saw the messages, this whole thing is screwed. Call me as soon as you hear this." I put the phone in my purse just as Ben walked into the waiting room. His expression was grim, and in his hands he carried a container with dark liquid. "Ladies," he said, his voice heavy with seriousness, "you need to see this." He led us into the garage where the car was on the lift. He pointed toward the brake system, specifically at the lines that carried the fluid. "Look here." Someone injected a corrosive compound into the brake fluid. It's something I've only seen once before in an insurance fraud case. This chemical progressively degrades the internal lines. The brakes work normally at first, but after a certain distance or a certain amount of use, the lines weaken until they rupture completely. How much further would we have gotten before they failed? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Ben did some mental calculations, looking at the car's odometer. With the amount of chemical they used and considering the vehicle's weight, I'd say between 10 and 15 more miles. After that, the brakes would have completely failed, without any warning. 10 to 15 miles. We would have reached exactly mile marker 48, the deadly curve. The plan was perfect, diabolically perfect. Can you document all of this? Linda had her phone out and was taking pictures. We need proof. I'm already on it. Ben had brought a camera and was photographing every angle of the brake system. I'm also going to take samples of the contaminated fluid for analysis. This is evidence of a crime. Ladies, you have to call the police now. He was right. We had enough. The messages on the phone, the sabotage car, the mechanic's documentation. It was time to make the call. But before I could take out my phone, Sarah's device vibrated again. This time it was a different message, from a number not saved in the contacts. "The payment is ready. $15,000, as we agreed, will be transferred as soon as you confirm the job is done." Unknown number. The corrupt mechanic. The man who had accepted money to become an accomplice to murder. And suddenly I had an idea. "We're not calling the police just yet," I said, surprising both Linda and Ben. My sister looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Bernice, we have everything. The messages, the sabotage car, the physical proof. What more do you need?" I need Sarah and Michael to believe their plan worked. The words came out of my mouth with a clarity that surprised me. I need them to think they won, that I'm dead. Only then will they lower their guard completely. Ben scratched his head, confused. "I don't understand. Why would you want to do that?" I sat down on a nearby stool, organizing my thoughts. The cold rage I had felt earlier was transforming into something more calculated, more dangerous. Sarah planned every detail of my death. It's time for me to plan every detail of her downfall. Because if we call the police now, they'll get a good lawyer. They'll say the messages are fake, that someone else has access to that phone. Michael is smart. He's done this before. He'll find a way to plant reasonable doubt. Linda sat down next to me, taking my hand. "What are you thinking, sister?" "I'm thinking we need more than evidence. We need a confession. We need them to expose themselves, to say what they did out loud, thinking no one is listening." "That's risky," Ben warned, "and possibly illegal." "I know." I looked at the burner phone resting in my lap. But Sarah taught me something today. She taught me that sometimes to survive, you have to be as ruthless as your enemy. The plan began to form in my mind. It was risky, yes, but it was also the only way to make sure Sarah and Michael paid for everything. Not just for trying to kill me, but for the murder of Michael's mother. For all the lies, all the manipulation. "I'm going back home," I announced, "but not in this car. Ben, do you have a vehicle you can lend us?" The mechanic nodded slowly. "I have an old truck. It's not fancy, but it runs well." "Perfect. Linda and I will go home in that truck." This car stays here as evidence. I need you to keep it in a safe place and not tell anyone we were here. And what will you tell Sarah when you get home? Linda still looks skeptical. I'll tell her we had mechanical problems on the road, and that a good Samaritan helped us. I'll give her back her purse, her phone, and I'll act like the trusting, loving mother she expects. And in the meantime, I'm going to prepare my own plan. Ben lent us his truck, an old but reliable Ford. Before we left, I made sure he understood the importance of keeping the car hidden and not mentioning our visit to anyone. I explained enough for him to understand the gravity of the situation, but not all the details. The fewer people who knew, the better. The drive back home was tense. Linda drove the truck, while I stared out the window, watching the familiar landscape pass by with new eyes. Everything looked different now. The world was darker, more dangerous. I could no longer trust my own daughter. Do you really think we can do this? Linda broke the silence after 20 minutes on the road. We have to, not just for us, for Michael's mother too. She deserves justice, even if she's not here to see it. My sister nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was scared. I was too, but the fear no longer paralyzed me. It gave me strength. When we arrived at my house, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in oranges and reds. The house looked peaceful. No one would have guessed that its owner had just discovered her daughter was planning to murder her. We went in through the front door. Everything was exactly as I left it 3 days ago. The plants that needed water, the mail piling up on the entry table, the absolute normality of a life that no longer existed. I'm going to take a bath, I announced, leaving my luggage in the hallway. I need to think.